Perched between Cornhill and Lombard Street in the City of London is Change Alley, an unassuming thoroughfare where the first informal stock exchange was born at Jonathan's Coffee House in the 1690s. Brokers were kicked out of the nearby Royal Exchange for rowdiness. A lot's changed since then, but there's still a lot that a broker from the 1690s or even the 1950s would recognise. As the Queen becomes the longest-serving monarch in British history, we're considering how the city has developed since her coronation.
The assemblage in one voice cries, "God save the Queen."
So what was the city like when Her Majesty came to the throne in 1953?
The city in the 1950s is an incredibly old-fashioned place. It would seem to one now if one time travelled back to it. Very male, men in bowler hats, sometimes top hats if they came from the discount market. A very authoritarian place, clear sense of hierarchy. The governor of the Bank of England running the city rather like the headmaster of a public school. I think there was great trust in that old pre-Big Bang city, and my word is my bond actually really did mean something.
My word is my bond. A simple statement, so deep in moral obligation, not merely a phrase spoken lightly as some vague ideal, but a practicing code of everyday behaviour.
Bear in mind there was a lot of physical trading, the stock exchange was a floor, these weren't people sitting behind screens, so if you did someone down on the Friday afternoon, you knew you were going to be face to face on the Monday morning. That made a big difference. The city started to change significantly in the 60s with the euro markets, the offshore US dollar market, as it were, the euro bond market, euro dollar market. This brought American banks very much to London, to the city, and it made the city more dynamic.
While the euro markets flourished below the radar, the old city was accused of failing to support domestic industry. But interventionism under Labour gave way to laissez-faire under the Tories, as Sir Geoffrey Owen explains.
From the early 80s onwards, the whole atmosphere in business generally and the city in particular changed, and cosy arrangements, semi-cartel arrangements were pretty much out of the window. Much more focus on competition. Mrs. Thatcher and her colleagues were very, very keen to stimulate American-style capitalism, American-style venture capital, to promote new industries, to promote new firms. So there was a very different atmosphere during those years, and as far as the city was concerned, it one might say culminated in Big Bang. So I suppose from the late 80s onwards, the concept of shareholder value, maximizing shareholder value, maybe this is a bit more recent in the sort of 90s and early 2000s, but I think the motivations, what was expected of people running companies was different. I think that obviously one of the consequences of the financial crisis was to damage the reputation of city institutions, banks in particular, damage their credibility, and I think has reinforced the sentiment, especially on the left of the political spectrum, but not necessarily confined to them, that the city has, to put it in an extreme way, let the British economy down, has let industry down.
Our counter through 6 decades of city history ends where it started, with the stock market. These are the thoroughly modern headquarters of a thoroughly modernised bourse. When the London Stock Exchange moved here in 2004, it had already switched from a member-based organisation to a quoted company. It had upgraded electronic trading through the introduction of the SET system, and it had digitised settlement. The stock exchange was seen as ripe for foreign purchase. Instead, it has become a consolidator under Chief Executive Xavier Rollet. The systems, manners and clothes would be unfamiliar to our 50s broker. but he would instantly feel attuned to the greed and fear that still drives the market. He'd also recognise the characters it attracts, from the plain dealer to the wide boy, and even perhaps those rowdy brokers. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Jonathan Guthrie, Financial Times, London.
From 1995's top 5, only Apple remains 20 years later, alongside more familiar names like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and the Chinese tech company Alibaba.